Aaron, thanks for joining me. If we just want to kind of start, give a quick intro to who you are, Aaron, for those that don't know, and what you're currently doing at the moment.
Yeah, sure. My name's Aaron Cusack. I am the subject area lead at Plymouth Marjon University, where I oversee a cluster of different programs. So, sport coaching, PE. I also lead the masters in our high performance sport coaching program as well. So, I've been a senior lecturer for this is nearly I think it's my 15th year at the university now.
Nice, nice. So you mentioned the courses there, the coaching, the PE.
Yeah.
Just curious to ask about analysis. Is analysis part of both of them, or as well as a master's, or is it on a certain one? And is it a module that is kind of given to the students, or they have to elect to choose to do that kind of part of the course?
They're all compulsory.
Yeah.
So the analysis forms a massive part of the coaching domain in particular, but we
Mhm.
also like to trickle it into the PE space because essentially they're still working with in the developmental space. So
Mhm.
ensuring that they grasp not only an appreciation of the people that they're working with, the learners, but we also use it as a reflective tool as well,
Mhm.
so that they can code their own behaviors. So we'll do some recorded stuff, and they not just look at the performance of the learners, but they also look at the performance of themselves. At masters level, they use it as as part of an intervention strategy. So
Mhm.
they have to work with either a player or a team or a unit, depending on which space that they're coaching in. And they have to do a needs analysis via a form of performance analysis and then work with that performer or performers for a period of time, which then allows them to write up in a report form.
Yeah, nice. So you mentioned 15 years, so a long time. You're also a coach as well, Aaron, so you've got a lot
Yeah.
of experience coaching. So I just want to ask you about the kind of changes and advancements in analysis in terms of the popularity as well from a coach's perspective, but also then from a perspective of how students are more receptive to analysis nowadays than, back in the day.
Yeah, very much so. I think what one benefit of it now is how accessible it is.
Mm.
In the modern era of technology with phones and things like that, we've become a culture of immediacy. So one click, we can gain data quite quickly now. And I think the fact that all our learners, the majority have got a smartphone or a smart tablet of some kind, it means it allows us to access information quite regularly and frequently. What I've liked in the evolution of the sports analysis platform is how transferable it is to devices.
Mm.
Whereas in the past, it used to be a subscription, and that package was then installed on a certain computer. It meant that you could only use that computer to do the analysis. Now, you can be quite remote. You can take your phone and go off to somewhere and do the analysis and have it readily available. So I think it's the accessibility.
Mm.
And we're becoming an environment, especially in the sports domain, of where we're data driven. So it's very objective, and I think the data helps to quantify the subjective viewpoints that coaches, especially student coaches, might have.
Yeah.
So they might do a form of analysis in real time that they think that's the information they feed back, and then we can utilize and almost verify the quality of that feedback or that observation with the data, which for me helps to consolidate and drive up the quality of them as they're developing their craft as a practitioner.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you seeing more students now kind of take analysis as a potential career pathway than what they maybe did before? Before, well, obviously the module hasn't. I'm presuming the analysis module wasn't in 15 years ago when you started doing it, Aaron. Is it a newer module that's important
Well,
for them? And
um, interestingly, Chris, it was, but we used to do it hand notation.
oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
So
nice.
we did a form of analysis, and we would record some bits and pieces, but it was quite grainy content, and we never did much. We couldn't clip it or anything back then. It was more a case of hand notation and then use it to verify.
Hmm.
But because the sector's changing, and now you can have a career as an analyst, clubs, especially, I'm predominantly talking from a football space, but in a lot of well supported sporting domains as well, that people can go out and have a career as an analyst. So I think that's what makes it more attractive to people. If they can build a craft and a skill set in a space that allows them to pursue it as a career,
Hmm.
I think they become more attractive to it and
Yeah.
more attracted to it, as you say, and so that they'll invest more time in it because they think actually I can carve out a career in this. If it was more just for pure enjoyment purposes, I don't think it would have the same pull.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing is the costings as well. So from a student perspective, um, the costings are realistic. If you
Mm.
go back, say 15 years, we were talking like 20 grand nearly for a license. And
Yeah.
now with the advancement of the technology I've already alluded to, it's a lot more attractive. So it's more accessible, more readily available.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then, as you'll know, again as a coach, like the kind of lines between a coach and an analyst are becoming more blurred all the time. Like coaches are expected to know these things and know these skills and kind of incorporate that into their how they coach. So you mentioned a little bit on what the students do, Aaron. Just kind of in terms of a little bit more depth, and let's say on the coaching course, for example, can you break down what the because you guys have been using Implant Line for a few years now.
Yeah.
So how does that how is that ingrained into the course? How would they be expected to go out and capture their own video and then kind of code that? How does that look?
So it's more of an evolution. So in our first year module, we have an immersive module. So the new first years come in particular, the sport coaching and PE programs, two separate programs, they share the same first year.
Yeah.
So in our immersive module, they will do the same bits of learning at the same time for 6 weeks. So what we do in that opening flavor of a module is give them an experience of the different bits that they can come to expect as their degree progresses. One of them is analysis. So we get them in and we play 3 weeks of. We normally change it up. So we play chook ball actually. So
Hmm.
we record chook ball. They're put in teams for 3 weeks, and then at the end of that, they have to do a mini presentation by showcasing how they've clipped footage, how they've extracted some data, albeit fairly small to start with. But for me, they love watching themselves play.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
it helps with in weeks 2 and 3 as well, we encourage them then to look at the data, look at the recordings, and come up because they know they're going to play against the same people, albeit if some are
Yeah.
away, it's different. But majority, they come up with different strategies that they like to implement as a
Yeah.
result of watching themselves back rather than relying on just memory.
Yeah.
Second year, so we're about to start in a couple of weeks. I give them a lot more responsibility. So I'm going to put them into what I've done recently, Chris, has worked really well. Rather than select, say, football or rugby or something of that ilk, because we've got a mixture of male and females, we tend to choose a racket sport.
Yeah.
So we play badminton. So what I do is I'll set them into 4 teams and they have to decide in their 4 teams. They'll play a round of badminton singles and
Mhm.
then they'll do a doubles game. So during that kind of practical for the week, we record all the scores and record the outcomes, but they have to choose who's playing when in their cluster. So one of them's the coach, one of them's the analyst who, even though we're filming stuff anyway, we also give them iPads
Yeah.
so they can do we get them to implement timeouts.
Mhm.
So if a player is winning by whatever and they're trying to close it out, they can time out and show them some footage. So
Mm.
it's a really immersive
Nice.
experience for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get them to drive that rather than me driving it from a first year perspective.
Mm.
And then third year, they get the option to do an analysis formed module if they want to.
Mhm.
And again, that's a case study. So they then have to go out and record all their data
Yeah.
and then begin to clip it. And we get them using the messaging software from the
Mhm.
InPlay Online as well, where they can send
Yeah.
that out to the people they're working with.
Yeah.
And then the final bit, Chris, is from an academic perspective. I'm going back to the second year a little bit here. What they do in their clusters is I encourage them to send messages to each other about the clipping and the footage, but also from an academic perspective, I get them to share links to articles that might underpin it for their presentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we kind of triangulate the experience, the data collection, and also the academic connection, which kind of rounds it off nicely.
Yeah, nice. I think that has proven to be kind of a positive, definitely in the setting of like a module at university. The kind of communication aspect, so you can send them messages, you can send voice notes, you can add the
Yeah,
telephone messages on there. So it can be if a student's working with another student in a pair, or a student wants to send you something for a bit of feedback, and you can kind of relay that back. So yeah, I think there's that, and then there's kind of the fact that they can collaborate. I don't know if that's a thing that you've done, but one thing we did add, Aaron, recently was that the students can work together on the same timeline. So if they are working together on a project, more than one person can add to that timeline and kind of code the game. So it's I think that's what it's about. The kind of you mentioned the cost as well. Like that's one thing with it being the cost of tech is just gone down for you. So that's obviously good for universities. But then the accessibility, not having to go into a specific computer room, which is what I had to do when I was at uni. And I tell you, sometimes I couldn't be bothered to go into uni, so
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah.
access the tool. So the fact that they can get it on whatever device they want, and they've got that communication tool as well. So that's perfect. So what I do want to ask you, Aaron, is advice basically. So advice for students. So student, and it doesn't have to be for analysis job, but just in general for a role in sport.
Yeah.
What would you say is some good advice you can give to kind of students at this point?
Well, I think first and foremost, we're in a world of technological engagement, so they need to become technologically literate.
Mm,
If you want to go into a sporting domain where data is a big part of it, they've got to know how to operate systems. It might not be that they don't have the specific knowledge of a particular software, but if they're comfortable using technology, that will only enhance their profile and it'll make them more employable for me because we see it all the time on the TV now, instant replays, data being clipped from one part of the ground to another, so if they are part of that, then it means that for me they have a better awareness of where that sporting coaching space is going to go or where it's going or currently where it's in as well. So it's
mm,
only going to, I don't think technology is going to disappear. It's going to be very much prominent within that sporting space. So the other thing is try and get as much experience as you can. It sounds like a cliche, but get much experience as you can in a space where you feel it will enhance you as a potential practitioner. And like you've already alluded to, Chris, the modern day analyst also has an understanding or needs to have an understanding of the coaching domain or the sport domain that they're working in. They're no longer just a number cruncher.
mm.
They're actually expected to deliver mini presentations.
Yeah.
So what is it about that information that can bring it to life? And I say to the students all the time, you could be the best analyst going, but if you can't relay that information clearly,
Mm.
then you're not employable.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you've got to bring to life the number and the data and how that data can be utilized. Because I think again that ability to communicate clearly is probably the most powerful attribute that people can have. And if you add knowledge to that, all of a sudden you've got a really highly skilled practitioner.
Definitely, definitely. Great answer, Aaron. Perfect as always. Appreciate your time, and I'll hopefully catch up with you soon.
No problem.
Cheers, Aaron.